yet from Baton Rouge, but we've tried.
Boy, thank you again. You see why we family. you see why we couple, why we have it every year, because you can't get kudos anywhere. You can get some kudos from Dr. Eartha Johnson.
Oh, yes.
Is that not so?
That is so.
100%.
That is 100%.
But tell us about Take Back the Night and why it is indeed so essential.
Well, Take Back the Night has been true and dear to our hearts at Dillard, and we formulated a partnership with Loyola, Tulane, Xavier University, Delgado Community College, all of the area colleges in SUNO, Southern University in New Orleans. And it is that time that we just reach out to the community that one time at least formally presented before the media so we can show our support for persons who are survivors as well as those who are, have been victimized through sexual assault and trauma in our community. My colleagues here have been long forward, staunch warriors in the struggle. You can see representatives from their areas from public health, psychology, and social work that we are manifold in blessings to be able to share out with our students, our faculty, the staff, and all of our community leaders relative to this. It is a movement that says that we take a stand, the university community, against these types of crimes in our city. So we move forward with a tabling session, a program where we will highlight a keynote. This year's keynote will come from Tulane University. We'll have a candlelight vigil and a march. This time we're going to Tulane University and a speak out from those who have survived and those who want to share their story.
The dates are highly important.
October 21st.
October 21st.
Yes.
Yes, and this is indeed a free event, is it not?
It is very
It's free,
yes.
open to the public. It encompasses, that's important to know.
I know. I know.
And so it's free and it's open to the public. And what I like about this is that we have an assembly of individuals in their respective fields. And Professor Edinburgh, if you can talk to us about social work. Why is it that social workers, from your field, and I got to tell you before you begin, I have a special a place in my heart for social work because my mother, may she rest in peace, was a social worker, and you can talk about why social work is so important to this endeavor.
Well, social work is important to Take Back the Night and to domestic violence prevention because we work with people where they are, and we're trying to continually bring people out of difficult places. So our work as social workers, we're trying to not only examine why, but how do we make things better? How do we change people's perspectives? One of the things we talk about is how do we empower, how do we advocate, and how do we transform? How do we change the way that people look at dealing with domestic violence? How do we change the way that people look at sexual assault, not as blamers, but as those who are working to make things better?
Now, there's a particular way that a social worker, when you would come to a person who's gone through social violence, through domestic violence, or something such as that nature, there's a certain feel that you bring to a certain amount of empathy or that you would bring. What do you bring?
Absolutely, you have to bring some empathy. We can't say, I know how you feel because maybe I have not walked in those shoes, but we can bring a level of empathy that helps the person to be comfortable with us. It's a very difficult subject to talk about. It's a very difficult place to be in. And if folks feel like we're being judgmental or we're trying to minimize their hurt, their anger.
Well, there's something that every time I see a young social worker or that person that's coming to the field, the one question I always ask that person is, do you care? Do you really, really care? That's all I want to know. Do you care? Because care requires a lot. Yeah.
Is it your passion?
And before we move forward, I would say that it can be exhausting. And not only physically exhausting, but in terms of your emotional.
Absolutely. It's for social workers, for psychologists, public health people, it can be exhausting we're taking on the burdens of other people.
Taking on their burdens.
Even though we think of it as a profession, we're really taking on their burdens.
Yeah, absolutely. So forget about empathy. You're involved.
You're involved. You're deep in it.
Yes.
You're boots on the ground.
And Dr. Cooper, there's something that I'd like for you to address as well in terms of why it is so important that psychology should be involved. And I'm going to talk about psychology in general, but in particular, and I'd like for you to bring this to the table because as I talk to many psychologists and people in the field, they talk about black psychology. And we could emphasize the importance and relevance, yes.
For years, as we all know, black people have this stigma about therapy and taking care of themselves. But someone who's gone through domestic violence really need the stability of a counselor to help them get through and move to the next step. Social work bring them the services, psychology help them continue to get through it. So we all work together in that, you know.
Yes, yes.
It's a collective approach.
Yeah, and again, you're able to. I know you can't diagnose something immediately, or even try to, but you understand the psyche of those individuals who have gone through that. And I was imagining you understand also how it can very well be manifested. Yes.
Yes. One of the diagnoses that perhaps someone who's a survivor, maybe post-traumatic stress disorder, right? And most of us are familiar with that, but do we really know what it means? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
For a survivor, it means, am I going through this every day? How do I deal with tomorrow? What do I do to better myself so I can pick myself up from this and accept the services that people are trying to offer to me? You know what I'm saying?
I most certainly do.
Yeah.
And I understand now exactly why so many songs have been hits because of survivors. I'm a survivor.
I'm a survivor.
And those of us of a certain of a certain vintage remember the disco period when they talked about I will survive.
Yeah.
I will
Yes,
survive.
and Professor Williams, you're not going to come to you because we've also known each other for so many years. But Dr. Don Williams, you cross several fields here, but public health, it's a public health phenomenon. You can talk about why this is again Take Back the Night is so inherently important to your field and your discipline.
It's important because those of us who are in public health know that it's the social determinants of health. This affects the whole family. And when you look at public health and what we have to do and making sure they get services, I mean, it's not, once you get through it, you have to say, well, I need help. I need medical help. You need, and continuous services as you're going through. And public health covers all of that. We encompass all of these areas, and we talk about it in terms of how do you make it through during those tough times? Where do you go for services in public health? Where do you go? What clinics you go to? Because sometimes, you have to deal with the physical effects of what has happened to you, and who has services, and are you afraid to go in and get the things you need in terms of your personal health care and what's going on around you and your family? Because public health does, and I think public health has come to the fruition in the last few years with COVID. Nobody knew what public health was. But once COVID hit, everybody kind of said, oh, that's what they do. That's how they do it. That's why they're worried and continuously working with people across the board.
Oh, I see that. And I would imagine then, because what you do is, it's even within the language itself, public health. And so, and this could very well be a worldwide problem, a national problem.
It is.
Domestic abuse. And we know that domestic abuse comes in all forms, but it could very well be a national problem. And we don't want to become an epidemic. Has it reached that level yet, or is it just where it is now? You would classify it as a problem.
I think it's somewhat of a problem because we still have a lot of people who are unstable.
Okay.
Who just recently, someone in the media was involved in a domestic violence with his,
Yeah.
I guess, his partner, his wife, whoever, and this was someone very noted. And so you know that there were some problems there, that he would have to go to that length of domestic violence and to be booked in jail for doing something like that.
Yes, and Dr. Johnson, let me come back to you again. Now I want to talk about two events that I think should be highlighted. We know everyone likes the keynoter, and the keynote speaker everywhere is always someone that's important and great. But I'd like for you to highlight two events that I think are pretty essential and very, very good beyond that go beyond the kind of like Virgil. But to talk about the spoken word, an opportunity for students to go out and their student involvement to go out and to speak, and their testimonials. And talk to us about the nature of that, and in particular how emotional that can be, emotional moments.
It's so emotional until I can tell you I can remember some stories that happened over 25 years ago as I sat and listened to students from all the campuses get up and tell their story. They have grown from them, they have persevered through them, but at the same time, those moments to hear, and for others who have been in the room who are either empathetic to your cause or they have a special yearning to assist you, is very meaningful. Um, those moments, Dr. Clark, mark, I think, a zenith point for the survivor to be able to once say something comfortable in an environment where they feel truly supported and those who hear their story are compassionate. I think Professor Edinburgh alluded to that a little bit earlier with social work in terms of your empathy, your trust, getting up with a passion about something, and to see others in the room who are as passionate as you are about what happened to you and give you support.
Is there a
may be
common excuse me? Is there a common denominator that you've over the years have you found between the participants, the student involvement?
hurt?
Oh, wow.
Hurt.
Well, you
Whether
say
what
yeah.
color, no matter what university campus,
Hurt,
no
pain.
matter about people in the community who come to support us. We've been partners with the Women's Justice League. We've been with
Women's Justice Center,
STARS,
Star Women's Justice Center,
United Way,
United Way.
other
So,
areas.
So
yeah.
your
Covenant
corporate
House.
support is there.
Covenant House.
The support is there. What we see, Dr. Clark, is hurt.
And
so
we see
from
it
that-
we see it not only with students. I've been involved for years, but we've also seen it where faculty and staff have disclosed
Disclose what?
their lives of abuse.
Okay.
Their lives.
So in other words, it goes from hurt to
Pain.
traumatized. Being
Traumatized.
and
so
some
they're
people
traumatized. that-
people have been able to show resilience,
resilience in spite of.
how they've made it over. And so that's been good for students to see that
You can make it
you
no matter what.
can overcome the hurt. You can overcome the pain, the anger.
Well, you know something, and I want you all to address this because this comes to my mind as I sit here this afternoon, and that is that there's a certain dualism that exists, that more than a dualism that exists. I thought about it when you mentioned the athlete, the person, but there was an athlete that was involved, Shakira Richardson, several weeks ago, in an altercation, very public in the airport, and she was. It would be battery anywhere else in America. But she hit her traveling companion, male, pushed him, did all sorts of things, and was even even held by the authorities for a while. Now there were those in the community that would say, guess what? If this had been a male athlete, a male person pushing a female, it would have been a whole different thing as opposed to, oh, okay, or you all as academics. You all as academics and professionals in the arena, if you could address that for me and for our listening audience.
Well, you're right that, we do look at it from the standpoint of women, but we have learned that there are lots of men, young men,
who are brutalized.
who are abused, who are brutalized, who are battered. We actually
By women.
By women.
By women.
2 years ago, our keynote speaker from Dillard was a young man who told his story.
excuse me. I mean, this goes beyond the keying of the car. Or,
goes
or
beyond the
throwing,
keying of the
You know what
car.
I'm saying? Or,
Yes.
or beyond that sort of thing.
And then
Yes.
a lot of times the men, because they have been taught you don't hit women, they don't fight back. They just take it.
And if you do fight back, you're headed to
Right.
the penitentiary. I say penitentiary,
And
but it could very well be. Yes.
And sometimes they do fight back. I mean, you know, we heard the story on the news this weekend, but we don't know the whole bottom of that story yet. And I think we'll hear some other things we'll have to have an aha moment about.
And so it looks to me as though, yes.
It's also, Dr.
Sure.
Clark, let me just say this.
Yes.
It's also a stigma in our culture for
Okay.
men to report. So that's really some of the issue as well. Because when you report, this is a very public display that happened with the athlete, but when you report, there's something about that circle, even those who may be compassionate to your story, to say you let her do. And then let's also mention same-sex relationships also have that. And
Can very well be abusive, and this
Oh,
goes
yes.
beyond being anecdotal. There are statistics that would indicate that in same-sex
Yes.
relationships that it can be abusive. Well, as professionals, do you handle that differently, or you handle it the same way? How do you handle it? How do you handle it differently, or the same? How does one handle that?
You got to be creative with men. It's a little bit different with men as opposed women may be more apt to talk to you, but men to admit that out loud to someone, that's difficult. So you got to be a little bit, as you know, as a therapist, be a little more creative in the way that you present it to them, so that they can share more.
Yes. Okay. The creativity. What do you all say with respect to your fields? Don, Professor Williams. Yes.
I think a lot of times, especially same sex with the men, they don't, number one, first they have to admit that this has happened to them or this is going on with them. This is why they're not doing well. I've seen students totally withdraw because they're having these inner conflicts about what's going on in their personal and private life, and they can't cope with it. They look for an outlet. Sometimes you're the professor in public health. You see it in their papers, or they'll write something, and you realize, oh, that's why this student is doing. You start addressing certain issues, and it comes out, and then hopefully you can send them to therapy, or send them to go get help.
Well, you sound like a professor that has an eye for knowing what to look for. Because sometimes there's a new professor or new individuals involved in the field. It may not be a red flag. It may not be something which that is your, I would imagine, your experience kicking in, is it not?
Yeah, it is. And I can tell you, a few years ago, I took over a class for someone, and this young lady started, they had to write a paper. And it was 2 pages. It was a critique on the whole thing of the right to life and that whole kind of situation in public health and what they thought. When this young lady started expressing what had happened to her and what decisions she had to make and why she made the decisions she made during a period of time in her life when something was going on with her, and she tried to tell another professor what was going on but they didn't want to hear it. The minute I picked up the paper and read it, I said, oh, wow.
Oh.
This explains a lot.
Okay, I see. Now, in the remaining minutes that we do have, I want you each to talk about, because I gave you what I think is something which I believe that it should be highlighted. But you can talk about the highlight for you at these events. I could start first with you, Dr. Cooper. You can tell us about the highlight event for you, if any.
Actually, before we go for Take Back the Night, go to Loyola, we actually have a chalk the walk.
Okay.
And the students really enjoy doing that, and they just write little sayings about what they're feeling about domestic violence. And that's my favorite.
Okay, and that's interactive.
Yes. That's my favorite.
So it's a prelude to what's going to take place.
Right.
Well, I have to agree with Dr. Cooper. We do Chalk the Walk. We've done Chalk the Walk together for the last 4 or 5 years. And getting the students involved and to express how they're feeling and to begin to support each other, because that's another space for students to recognize that something's wrong.
And they recognize that.
And they recognize it.
Yes.
One of the things that I think that have been most impressive to me are the reflection papers that maybe some of the students in our classes are writing after this experience, what their thoughts are after the experience. And you will find that it is highly enlightening. I'll share with you also that we have done research themes centered around this whole topic, in addition to the possibility of students who are interviewing for graduate school application processes share their participation in Take Back the Night. And where that takes them sometimes equates to scholarship money and fellowship money. And so that's one good thing that we could say that we come for providing our students with these experiences, is that they could take it anywhere they go with them, because Take Back the Night is just not a New Orleans movement. It's a movement all over the country. And we have with our Melton Fellows, because we still are the only university in our country that has the Melton Fellows with us. And you could look it up on melton.org to find out more information. But we staged a Take Back the Night in Chile, in Germany, in Africa, in China, and they took to the streets. And as we rallied and marched, they rallied and marched with us.
And that's awesome. When you go global, yes.
And I think for us, for me, the speak outs are really good, because when the students speak out, when students speak out about what one or two about what has happened to them, that gives other students the courage to do the reflections and open up, because they may have had some problems, but they don't want to admit it till they have a chance to hear someone else who admits to it.
And okay, let me say this before I close. I want us to close with Dr. Johnson as well. But I think that this is great for retention. And it also, I don't know if there's any data that's there that you can find, not only in terms of retention, but in terms of that GPA going up. Final comment about the dates and time, Dr. Johnson.
Tuesday, October the 21st at 6 o'clock p.m., Loyola University Horseshoe.
Oh, yes,
Please
indeed.
join us.
Oh, absolutely fine. Again, I want to thank my guests for coming, for joining us, Professor Cooper, Professor Edinburgh, Professor Johnson, and Professor Williams. And this is Dr. Gary Clark. You can find me on all platforms of social media. And as always, it's been a pleasure.